The other day I received a beautiful letter from a friend of mine, and this letter contains a question that I think is worthwhile to make a video answer to. This question comes up every now and again, and it's a question about one of the two things that I feel are most worthwhile sharing. One is, of course, love, which has the most profound, the most significant, the most uplifting effect on those whom we share it with. And the second thing that we can share that is of truly great value is our story. And what story? The story. There's something that you have gone through in your life. There's something that your story can convey to someone who is in just the right position to receive it, that it can have a very transformative effect, that it can have a very uplifting effect, that it can have a very inspirational effect, or some effect that you can never even think of or imagine or name. And yet there's true power in sharing our stories. Because something you share might land in just the perfect way for me to help me make that next step, whatever that next step may be. So I want to read you his letter, and then I'll answer it. This is from Jeff. And Jeff writes, "You're speaking a great message. Keep it up. Your words are powerful and full of meaning. You are fortunate, as you know, to have reached this level of awareness at your age. I have always sought truth from many belief structures, but I have been perpetually trapped in duality perception. It wasn't until relatively recently that I have been guided to the recognition of a singularity perspective. If you don't mind, I am curious as to how you formulated your personal understanding." I didn't formulate it. "Were you raised with a particular belief structure?" Yes, I was raised with a very social, non-religious belief structure. And was there a defining before and after realization moment? Was it gradual? Or have you always had this awareness? You get the idea. Namaste, Jeff. Yeah, so the reason I want to make this video is I want to share about this moment. Yes, there was a moment. There is a distinct realization moment, a revelation moment, and a definite before and after. I did not grow up with this. I did not grow up with spirituality or religion or much of anything other than the core material world that many of us grew up with. And it wasn't until I was 18 that all of this really shifted for me. And leading up to 18, I was just not a very happy-go-lucky teenager. Going through high school, I was often depressed and angry, and I did all kinds of drugs and bought drugs and sold drugs, and I was really involved with the wrong crowd. And this really escalated the closer I got to 18, because at 18 something remarkable happened, and something that I would never have wished upon anyone, and that is that my mom passed away from cancer when I was 18. Leading up to that, when she was sick, I would do all I can to ignore it, turn away, make it, as unreal for myself as I could. Whether it was through drugs, through alcohol, or through partying, whatever it was, I would do my best to ignore that aspect of what was happening, because I was scared. And when she passed away, it was at that point that my rock bottom part of life really emerged. I became so frustrated, so angry, so passionately hateful of the world, of God, and of everyone. And And yet out of that hate, out of the hatred that completely took me over, something, again, incredible happened, something remarkable, something miraculous. And that is this gift of revelation. It was that same summer, after I turned 18, that just through a series of random events leading up to this moment, I happened to receive Eckhart Tolle's books in the mail. I was not interested in him, nor meditation, nor spirituality, nor did I even know these things exist. And yet his books came, and they tumbled out of the case and onto my bed, and I saw A New Earth and The Power of Now. And I flipped over The Power of Now, and what is this? And I saw the 3 myths that humanity lives by. One was that we're separate from each other, nature and the cosmos. The other one is that we have reached the pinnacle of our evolution. And the third one is one I can never remember what it was. And as I read these, something in me got rekindled. Something of that old childhood curiosity. I remembered how as a kid I was so curious and so alive to this possibility of a greater reality. I knew even when I was young, and that's probably why all of the depression and darkness arose when I was entering into my teens. I had this perpetual feeling that something is wrong with the world, that it's not meant to be like this. And I remembered even back before then, when I was very young, I would always discuss with my friend, I'd even hide under the covers, and we'd talk late into the night so parents don't notice that I'm awake, and we'd talk about all kinds of things, about the Stonehenge, about the pyramids, about God, about existence. And then slowly it faded away as the years went on. And in that moment I remembered this, somehow came to the surface. So I packed up the books and off I went. I went on a camping trip with a few of my closest friends. And on this camping trip we were having lots of fun. Again, we were drinking, doing some drugs, just hanging out and having a swell time. And near the end of the day, I remember myself sitting at the edge of the lake, and I was playing with a rock, with a pebble in my hand, and I was overlooking the water, and I just started feeling how alive the water looked, how purposeful its movements were. And as I played with this pebble, it was intertwining between my fingers, and I looked upon it, and I was just amazed, because I can't really do that. I don't know how to make a pebble weave like a snake between your fingers, and yet that's what it was doing, almost of its own. Seeing this, I looked up, and I looked right into the eyes of my friend sitting across from me. And in that particular moment, time stopped. All sounds ceased, and there was an endless, deafening silence that penetrated the entire field of experience. It was as if everything was on pause. And within that timelessness, there arose within my body this incredible feeling of love. This magnificent bliss just rose up and completely exploded in my heart, in my head. And I never knew a love like this. It was complete, it was perfect, it was just magnificent. And within that, there was the awareness of an infinitely vast field of intelligence that was at the same time me, and at the same time God, and at the same time everything and all that is. And there was absolutely no process of thought. There was no verbal recognition or nothing. The mind was completely still, and so was the world. And yet, within that moment, arose within me that same innocence that was rekindled when I read Eckhart Tolle's words. And that innocence asked a question. Not in words, again, because words were absent, but it asked it in its being. It was by being the question that the question was posed to God, yes, to this infinite field. And the question really was, if I were to verbalize it, what is this? Why are we in this world? How does this world work? What am I? What's the purpose? What? And in answer to this yearning to know, was a vision, but not a vision. It was like I was granted direct knowledge. Only I can call it a knowingness of the nature of reality. It was without mistake that I could see that all of it is love, that all of it is God, that all of it is purely perfect and divine. And it was as if I was shown the entire evolution of life. I mean, more like the entire evolution of consciousness in its play as life on earth. This was the vision, except it wasn't visual, it was somehow direct. Somehow as if I lived it and I was it. And what was shown in this vision is that from conception on life on earth, right to this very moment in which I found myself, everything was so perfectly orchestrated. Everything was so perfectly intertwined to make just the perfect pattern. There was no mistake in any one iota. Not a single dust particle was out of place. Not a single event was wrong. Nothing. Not a bit of it. It was as if from an ant's eye view of being completely down at the very lowest rung of the ladder, as we humans are. I don't know how accurate that statement is, but the visual of it is what I want to get at. So from this ant's eye view, it was as if I was raised up and just released into the stratosphere, and I could look, instead of being there among the grass blades and seeing that world, I could all of a sudden see the entirety of this tapestry of life. I could see how it was complete and perfect, and how incredibly beautiful it was. It is like when you have a computer screen before you and you have a picture on the screen and you zoom into this picture to this maximal proportions. What you see then is a pixelated experience. There's a block here, a square of red, a square of purple, square of yellow, square of green and brown and black, and you see these, 6 squares. And it seems to make no sense. Well, why is it this way? Why is the yellow next to the black? Maybe it should be the other way around. It would suit my preference. And yet when you zoom out, all of a sudden it comes all at once into your awareness as the most stunning sunset with the most miraculous backdrop, and the beauty of it leaves you breathless, because that's what beauty does. And this is what life looks like. This is what evolution looks like when you see it from the perspective of that infinite field of awareness and intelligence. And I suppose from the perspective of your own holiness, from the unfiltered, undiluted state. Seems funny to call it a state. I have no words to explain it. And yet, this was the stunning revelation of the absolute perfection, in which there was absolutely no fear, no doubt, no negativity of any kind, because all was one and all was perfect, and all was working and serving itself, and every aspect of the one was perfectly working to support its own perfection. So this was the experience, and imagine in that experience then, that childlike innocence had another question. Well, what about mom? How could it be that mom has died, and And it was as if in answer to this question, the presence of what my mother was or is became so apparent. Not visual, again, but this knowingness that she is right here with me. This knowingness revealed to me also that there is no death, that life is everlasting, eternal, that nothing is ever lost, no one is ever gone. There is absolutely no thing at stake, ever. Ever. And it just completely blew the doors off fear altogether. There is no room for fear in what is all-encompassing, and that is love. Oh. And for some reason, the next question within my heart was about Jesus Christ. Now, I have no previous affiliation with it. I know my grandma was Christian, but I had no context for it. But somehow, within that moment, that was the question. What about Jesus Christ? Was He real? Was that all real? Is that the truth? Is it true that this is the way, the truth, and the life? Is Christ Christ? And in answer to this inquiry was the revelation of that presence. It was, again, just as that confirmation came from my mom, in the same way came the confirmation from Jesus Christ. And I knew without a doubt that, of course, this is all absolute. That the truth and unconditionality of that love is the truth and unconditionality of that love. And slowly after that, after the eons have passed, within what is probably a minute or so of Earth time, this experience dissipated, almost as if it was a dream, almost as if the haze clears and all of a sudden here I am back, just Boris. And yet it wasn't this way. It wasn't that I was just back Boris. It was like this conviction of absolute perfection of life was so stunning that no fear or doubt was present even after that dissipation. But unfortunately for me, that only lasted for about a week, and then that dissipated again, and all of life's problems are flooding in, and I struggled so hard, and I grasped, and I was trying to get back to this state, because it felt so complete, because it felt total. It is done, and it is done. It is almost like as if the veil of this, whatever we want to call it, Maya, the illusion, the programming, it was just blown apart. And I could see life as it is. And life is this way now. And yet somehow I have to, it seems, walk the steps back into that state of being. But all of these words fail here because there is no state to walk back, and there's no one to walk to the state. And yet there is the appearance of it. And ever since that moment, of course, my life has never been the same. Ever since that moment, even though that absolute state, another revelation, has dissipated, what has not dissipated is the conviction and the certainty that love is the only reality, that God is the only reality, and that we are all completely safe and perfect and alive, and no harm can come to us. Somehow, some part of that, though of course not in full conviction, some part of that remained with me forever. And that was the string, the path that was created from that experience. And that is the path that I've walked every single day since then. And I've fallen and then gotten up and went astray and came back. And all of these experiences of walking the path unfolded and continue to unfold. And it of course continues to grow in momentum, and in the presence of the Holy Spirit is becoming more and more and more apparent each and every day, especially now. So this is how it happened here. This is how I became initiated into the realization of God's presence, of love's presence, of the divine truth beyond conventional societal reality. And that's all I want to share. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for your letter. Namaste.